Welcome to Let's Talk Antigonish, the podcast where we sit down with neighbors, experts, and friends to explore the stories, the questions, and the big little issues that shape life in our town, one conversation at a time. This week, we're talking with Marlene Melanson, Recreation Director of the Municipality of the County of Antigonish. We wanted to know what the deal was with the active transportation corridor. You know, that walking and biking path thing alongside the old Highway 104 that connects to the new bike path thing there on West Street? Well, what's it for? And who's using it? What's being built next? What are those weird fenced-in areas that seem to overlook nothing? What does active transportation even mean? Well, we got all the answers. Well, we got most of the answers because it turns out there's a difference between the county's active transportation plans and the town's active transportation plans. There's a lot to learn, and Marlene is here to shed some light on the issues.
We are your hosts. I'm Anuj.
And I'm Justin. Well, welcome everybody to the podcast. We're very excited today to be joined by Marlene Melanson. I pronounced your name correctly?
You did.
Sweet.
Welcome.
Yeah,
Thank you.
And we are here to ask questions and talk about the active transport corridor. Is that the correct official term?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Specifically for the corridor that I'm here to speak about is the Trunk 4 active transportation corridor.
Trunk 4. So that is the one that has already been built, right?
Along the
old 104.
Old 104, that is correct.
Okay. Great. So that's the one you know the most about, but of course it connects to the one heading through town. So we will talk about that because as we were talking before the podcast, you were mentioning there's quite a big difference between the county part of it and the town part of it.
Even though they are connected.
Even though they're literally connected.
Even though there is a difference for the construction phase of it, the history and going back several years that brought us to the actual construction phase. We work closely with the town of Antigonish. We still do, but the actual construction projects are two separate initiatives.
But anyway, somebody who's just arrived yesterday, and if we were to say what this is about, how would you explain that?
Exactly. What is active transport corridor? Those are not normal words that I would understand.
I agree.
I would think you're talking about some sort of weird train.
That's interesting. So active transportation is getting around on your own power. So it can be walking, cycling, wheeling, skateboarding, or using power aids such as bikes or e-bikes or scooters. But it's non-motorized modes of transportation.
Okay.
Primarily.
Like a powered wheelchair would be okay.
Absolutely.
And maybe a bicycle that has like a little engine, that's okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
What about dogs? Can you bring dogs onto it?
Absolutely.
Okay. That was one of my main questions.
And babies.
And babies and strollers and,
Okay.
and all those sorts of things.
So active transport means essentially anything without a big motor.
Yes. But there's two types of active transportation. So you've got your active transportation for commuter purposes. So that's traveling to a purposeful destination. So perhaps it's walking to work or walking to school, and then we have your recreational transportation modes, which is walking for leisure, for fitness, for a variety of other things.
So this that has been built and is being built is for both recreation and people getting to a place.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So where the current corridor, the piece that you see that's completed right now, the multi-use path between James Street intersection, or just past James Street, almost to Church Street. So that's the first phase of the project. That was phase 1 and 2. We are now entering phase 3. So the project, once it's complete, will have 5.5 kilometers of multi-use path. So that's the paved shoulders that you see there now, or the paved path that you see there now. And that will extend from Beach Hill Road, the Beach Hill Roundabout, all the way up to Addington Forks.
Okay, and all along the old 104.
Correct.
Essentially.
Beyond that particular project, there's also an initiative to, when we actually applied for the funding to do for the Trunk 4 corridor, part of the project also included widening the shoulders from Beach Hill Road all the way down to the 316 extension.
So widening the shoulders, that simply means like expanding the width of the road so that you could put a bicycle there alongside the main car route? But
correct.
Without a barrier between them, just sort of.
Right. It'll just be it'll be a designated route, and it'll probably be designated with paint.
So the idea is you're as a bicycle-y person, or potentially someone could walk there as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay,
absolutely.
While we're on that, like, the section that I'm very familiar with, the old 104, because I drive it all the time, the people are walking there. Are there other things coming in there besides just a paved path? Because there are those little like outlook things, and I was in a debate for like years to figure out what was that. Was it supposed to be like a viewing area? Because someone was right in front of a bunch of trees. I'm like, no. I'm like, maybe they're going to put like a food truck there or benches. So is there anything coming along there in those spots besides just places to walk, like touristy stuff?
We've never thought of food trucks, but yes, there is definitely something coming along there. This summer, we'll be installing some benches. We recently have received a study, completed a study with a consultant. So we'll be putting benches in there, some waste receptacles, of course. And so we are looking at some interpretive signage, talk a little bit about the history of the area. We're also going to do some, I don't know if you're familiar with the Make Your Move Antigonish project that our department's involved with. So we'll be putting some information about the Make Your Move. There'll be some designated Blue Routes signage because it's on the Blue Route. So yes, there are definitely things coming.
Okay.
The whole idea behind when the council chose to make Trunk 4 as a priority is that's to be the spine of the active transportation corridor. So with that, we want to create some connections and some connectors to make our community more walkable. There's already some really great projects going on that tie into that. One of them is the Town of Antigonish Active Transportation Corridor that ties into Trunk 4 at West Street. I don't know if you're familiar. We're involved with a project called the Community Active Transportation Network in and around the St. Martha's, Bethany area. St. Martha's put in a number of public gardens in a few years ago, so we're trying to create some connections there. We recently installed a multi-use path that connects the Bethany Gardens to St. Martha's. If you've noticed, there's a new path alongside the main entrance driveway into St. Martha's. So we've been involved in that. And the idea is to eventually, hopefully, be able to connect to the opposite side of the road, eventually creating connections to Mount Cameron, Antigonish Landings. Those are some of the initiatives that we hope to do down the road.
Okay, so you used the word spine, and that is the spine, as I'm understanding what you're saying, is that section that we've already seen of the 104 that's been converted, and that's going to have a lot of offshoot projects for active transport.
It definitely has the potential to have a lot of offshoots. There's some that we're seeing now. There's some that we hope to see more over the years. There's a few that we're working on currently that I can't speak about right now, but there's a couple. There's another key one that hopefully will happen this year, if not this year, next year.
Okay.
So stay tuned for that one. But
so I'd like to clarify because it definitely seems, and it is the case, that this is a county project, this little trunk, the 104 here, and that it connects to different things, projects happening, including from the town, because you're talking about the active transport for the town being a different thing, and that's the thing that we've seen on West Street. So these are, can you clarify for everybody, because I was talking with Anuj about this, like I live out in the county, but like when I think about this active transport thing, I do not differentiate between, I just think of one path.
And as a walker or as a user of that service,
you don't see it.
I won't see crossing that line, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would see that as one whole thing, and I hope that that's how it's been designed.
Yeah, but it seems for us as users, it's meaningless as to who's in charge and what not, because we just use it as a path, and we want to know.
We are ignorant people anyway. So,
generally, that's how I describe Anuj to everyone. Very uninterested and ignorant. But yeah, so knowing that us, the user, doesn't notice these differences, can you clarify the difference between the different versions of the active transport trail and why it's important for us to understand what's different?
So the main difference is really just the construction of the two corridors. What brought us to this point of where we are, everything that happened pre-construction phase, we worked on together. So the plan that was done in 2014 was financed by the town and the county of Antigonish, and with some provincial funding. So we hired a consultant to prepare the plan for us. So that was funded by the local municipal governments and the provincial government. In 2016, the municipality adopted the plan as a guiding document or as a playbook to see this is what active transportation could look like in our municipality. And the town was also working on AT at the same time, in parallel to us. The construction of it is different. So that we are responsible at the municipal level in partnership with the province of Nova Scotia for the construction of the Trunk 4 corridor. And the town is their project, or is responsible for the construction of the West Street and the connections through the town of Antigonish.
So they do look different, right? Because the one on West Street has the little bicycle paint things, and then it has a sidewalk next to that. So I had a question about that, because when you're on the Trunk 4 one, it's just a big wide space. The part where the bicycles are painted on, that really is truly only 4 bicycles. Do you know that? Because I just know my daughter was walking on that and got yelled at by a bicyclist. And so I assume that it's meant that when you get to that section, the town part, you have to go over to the pedestrian part. Yeah, the pavement. The
I don't know the specific rules of that, but ours in the county, along the Trunk 4, like the piece that you see now, that path, so that multi-use path specifically separated from the highway, will continue all the way through to Beach Hill. The bridge that's between Beach Hill and Church Street will be replaced, and there will be a multi-use path separated from the vehicle traffic on the bridge with a distinct separation, and that'll be multi-use path all the way to Beach Hill. This summer there's a new roundabout that's being constructed at the Church Street intersection, but once we get to phase 4, which is the section from just past James Street all the way to Addington Forks, so up along the Post Road area. You will probably see something. We're still in the design, so it's not finalized, but we'll probably see something very similar to what you see in the town now. So because there's already sidewalk along there, So we won't be ripping up the sidewalk, but there'll be a similar cycle track along the north side of the road. Yes.
So this makes sense. So like in the town, you've already got a sidewalk, so then you just build a bicycle path next to the sidewalk, and that sort of ticks the box.
And rearrange the whole road. Yeah.
And So whereas you're going from scratch, you're ripping it all up. You can put in whatever you want. So in the county part, some of the county anyway. Yeah. Okay.
So that's a really good point, though, because like again, so because of the work that's been done to date, some people think active transportation is the multi-use path, but it's so much more than that. It can be a multi-use path. It can be an off-road trail. It can be a sidewalk and a multi-use path. It can be sidewalk connectors into there's so many different types of active transportations and types of surfaces.
So even in town, the existing walking paths that have been there forever, they're technically active transportation.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Interesting.
Absolutely.
Very interesting. And if I were to just look at those that network of paths, how do is there a map that I can look at, if I come to a town and county recently?
I have to say, because in preparing for this interview, I downloaded and looked at some maps about what's been constructed and what's going to be constructed, and I don't understand any, they're talking about this is connecting to that and this is going to West Street here, and I'm like, I don't know what's happening. Isn't there just a map to show me where I can walk? Is that something that's going to happen?
That is definitely something we would love to see. Because there's so much happening, there's so much that's already there. Like I said, it includes sidewalks. It includes anything that's
includes Liquor Lane. That's got to be in there somewhere.
But that's a form of active transportation. Is there a map currently? No. That's definitely something that we need to work towards.
How good are you in drawing, Justin?
Terrible.
Yeah. Okay. No, so it's not job for us. Yeah. Okay.
No. But
yeah. So,
and one thing that we have been kind of hearing off and on is that there is some pause in some plans, or there's some discussion happening. Mostly, I think now that we understand, it's probably on the town side. What can you share with us without whatever you know?
The town of Antigonish had a really informative active transportation session about a month or so ago, maybe.
Yeah,
where
I
they
heard
shared
that down March 25th.
March 25th.
Yeah.
So that was very informative. As far as the pause and what they're looking at and the phasing of their projects, I'm not up to date on what their plans are.
Are they voting on it? Is that what's happening?
I don't know.
Oh, you don't know. Okay.
That would be a separate conversation with someone from the town.
For someone from the town. Can you tell us what feedback you've had? Like, are people using it, and who is using it and how?
So the feedback we're receiving is all very positive. People are using for recreationally, for leisure. We know people use it to get either. I see several students who use it to get to university, especially if you're coming across, like if you're coming from the number 7 across the highway or other sections. We see people who are using it to get to the mall, to even if you're coming from the county into town, we see a lot of people using it. Whether it's a destination base or it's for recreation, just out to get some physical activity, a bit of exercise. Yeah. We have heard back from runners who are using it. We have a pretty extensive equipment loan program at the municipality, which includes bicycles. So we've had students come up and board our bicycles, and we see them on the corridor all the time. You'd be driving, hey, that's one of our bikes on there. This is great. And I know there's students who are going to and from university, which is fantastic, because AT is more than just about the built infrastructure. There's a whole social component that goes along with it. There's the whole education piece. I don't know if we're currently involved in Make Your Move Antigonish initiative, which is basically, to keep it really simple, is encouraging everyday movement and shifting from hopefully more dependence on vehicles and shifting towards more intentional movements and more everyday movements. So that whole social piece goes along with the active transportation.
So who is in charge of maintenance and snow removal and that kind of stuff when it comes to the county's portion of the active corridor?
So there is an agreement between the province of Nova Scotia and ourselves for the maintenance and operation. So once the entire corridor is constructed, we will be the province owns the infrastructure and the road bed. We will be responsible for the operations and maintenance of the multi-use PAT, and our local municipal public works staff do plow it in the winter and maintain it in the winter.
The image that comes to my mind is if I was building a house and I have half the plumbing, I can use parts of that house, but really not the whole house in a integrated. And that's how it feels like. We have parts built, and people are using it already, but the exponential growth of use is likely to come only once the whole plumbing is done.
Yeah, it's all connected.
Is that a useful way to think about it, or not? No, she doesn't like it.
I'm not going to comment on that.
Okay. Yeah. But I think, to me as a newcomer, or anybody, if I had all that integrated in my mind, I can say, okay, today I'm going to walk this place, or today I'm going to bike here, as opposed to saying, okay, there's.
You can't go there.
I guess the best way to address that would be if we go back to the 2014 plan, which, as I said, the county has adopted that as a guiding document of what AT could look like within the municipality. Right. So that particular plan identifies all kinds of connections and places to walk, and how do you connect this PAT with this PAT throughout the entire county. And some of it, and sometimes it's not necessarily connecting into the main spine, but making sure that, because our geographic area extends from Alls Cove down to Arisag, around the Cape, and up
towards. It's a very large area.
So it's a very large area. So sometimes there's a lot of community groups who are working on trails and active routes within their specific communities, which is great for their communities. But if you look at that plan, it identifies possible connectors and things that make sense. So going forward, and what needs to happen next is to take a look at that and say, okay, where do we go from here? Once this corridor is built, where do we go? What do we do next? What are the next steps? And there's so many directions that this could take. It could take. Do we continue to build onto and encourage more corridors? Do we continue to build extensions? We definitely a map is something that's, it's in the back of my mind.
Right.
I haven't discussed it. It's not something that I've had an opportunity to discuss with the county council at this time, but it's definitely something that to be able. But if you were to look at the 2014 plan, that shows you the possibilities.
Yeah. And how does one access that plan?
I believe it's available on our website.
Okay, great.
Yeah. We were talking a little bit before we started, before Anush got here, about the difficulties of this compared to another like cosmopolitan area. Because I compare this to, the first thing that pops into mind is the High Line in New York City, where they converted that old railway into this beautiful trail. Great, fine, that's New York. There's millions of people, there's a ton of money. Or like where I spent some time in Burlington, Vermont, which is a small city, but they have a beautiful sort of series of like bike paths and things. And I'm like, well, why can't we do that here? Well, this is an enormous geographic area. We're talking like way out in the county. The county is huge, and there's relatively few people here. Therefore, the infrastructure is nothing like a larger city like Halifax. So it just seems like an impossible task in a way to just quickly link up all the ways you could get around because of the size and the amount of the tax base, Am I right about that? Or
Absolutely. I used to feel the exact same way.
Okay.
I remember, and I'm going way back here, but back to 2007, attending an active transportation conference that was hosted by Recreation Nova Scotia. We were down in Digby, and there was a lot of sessions and presentation on active transportation, walkable communities, and I can remember like sitting there like, wow, this is really great, this is really wonderful, but we don't have an urban center in Antigonish County. Like we can't do this in a rural Nova Scotia.
Having said that, you are urbanizing even if the periphery of the town. If you don't see the line, it's increasingly urbanizing very rapidly. I would say the buildings are coming up. The school actually is technically in the county, I believe.
Yeah, a little bit. But right? I mean, where I live out in Pleasant Valley, like I'd love to have an active transport corridor that takes me into town. And I've walked many times from there, but like I have to walk like down over the tracks, like fording the river or whatever. There's no way. But like if you were to just get an active transport corridor from out where I am to town, that's going to be like $2 million just for me and the 10 people that live out where I am. And so that seems like...
No, I don't think we want to spend that money. But anyway.
Certainly not on me. But like you say, when it's closer to town, just over the county line, just barely, then you can slowly expand it.
Yeah.
So again... that's kind of where the concept of the spine came up. So there are possibilities for some communities to connect into, and then there's some that are working on that now. That's where multimodals of transportation becomes important. So active transportation doesn't necessarily mean like you can get from the community of St. Andrews or Pumpkin or St. Joseph's using active modes of transportation. Perhaps you take a transit to a certain point, or perhaps you take your car and you park it somewheres and then you walk the rest of the way. Or if you have a bike rack, you hop on your bike and you make it an intentional part of your day. Maybe you drop the kids off at the local arena and they walk to school rather than
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
So there's all kinds of it's more than just the non. I guess it's you have your active transportation, but there's connections to other modes of transportation, so that you can include active transportation in your day to day if you choose to.
This whole active transportation is, I think, intricately related to the question of urbanization, and we know that our region, Antigonish County and Town, population has increased about 10% in the last 4.5 years. And if that trend was to continue, I don't know. We are looking at housing crisis. Of course, that's the negative side of it. But as a community, we are growing. And so it will make sense to invest in this and see the 10 years horizon and justify that investment right now, as opposed to we are static. If we were to have, in theory, if we were to have plans for where are those urbanized spaces emerging in the county, that will make sense to build this infrastructure. I'm just, does that make sense, that line of thinking?
Absolutely. Because it makes 100% sense, because not everybody will or has access to a vehicle. And active transportation is their only modes of transportation. I can think of 2 or 3 other initiatives that are coming down the pipe where it makes sense to make those connections, looking at where some of the growth is, where some of the population or the walking patterns are right now. We're seeing some patterns where there is a lot of non-motorized traffic, and we look at that and say, does it make sense to put a connector here? Would this be beneficial? So we always have that kind of in the back of our minds. Right now is get the corridor done, get the spine done. But as we're nearing completion in another couple of years of the spine, we want to be prepared for what comes next. And those are some of the conversations and the things we need to think about moving forward.
Is there any advice you would offer to people who are curious about the active transport corridor and how to use it?
First of all, I'd encourage them to give us a call and to learn more about the project itself.
You like an actual phone call? Like that's an interesting because I don't want anyone calling me. But you're saying you would like someone to phone you to talk more about it.
But we do have people calling us and asking us questions, and about what does this mean or where's this going? So yeah, we're happy to answer questions. Absolutely.
Cool.
And we're happy to explain what the big project, like the whole, right now, like as you said, you see just a portion of it. We're happy to explain, that's part of the communications too. That's the big piece that we're working on right now. Is we need to get more communication out there. We need to be able to show what we're currently working on, what's going to be done over the next few years. So that's a piece that's missing on our end on the communication sides of things. So that's something that we're working on to kind of get the message out there and say, this is what it's going to look like when it's all done.
Yeah.
Kind of like to the map idea. We're working on signage. We hope to have some signage in place this year.
From a background that I come from, silly, what I'm going to say, what attracts people like me to be on the transport is a corner shop that sells tea.
I was going to say ice cream stand. You put an ice cream stand?
And then say, wow, yes, I will go in for a walk and I'll have a tea with a friend of mine that I have not seen in 2 months.
Exactly. Like
that will motivate me. Walking, I can walk anywhere.
But a French fry stand, I know you're trying to get people actively moving because that's nice because it's good for your health or whatever. But if you just throw something unhealthy as a reward in the middle of it, right? Just like a chocolate, maybe Piece by Chocolate as a chocolate
tea is
stand.
Not unhealthy, but anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry. I digress.
But that's part of AT, right? It's a purposeful destination that you want to go to. There's all kinds of places that people can get to, and we want them to be able to get there safely.
Right.
And I think the other piece that we have not touched upon is probably part of this is we have an aging population in our community, and many folks are wanting to now downsize, come back to town or on the periphery of the town. We see those constructions happening, and they will need a very different kind of access to walking,
barrier-free.
So I think there's a whole demographic shift that is likely to use this much more now.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we think about those things and we talk about those things, and any projects going forward. Again, with approval of County Council, of course, but any projects going forward would will be designed with those things in mind. That was kind of we have like 5 guiding principles that we identified when we were developing the design for the corridors, and accessibility for all was one of those.
Right.
That was one of our guiding
it's funny, talking about accessibility, one of our newcomer from Syria, posed this question to us. This is Samir.
Oh, Samir, yeah.
Yeah, saying, if something was to happen to the bridge between the town and St. Martha's, we are completely isolated.
So,
and I had never thought of that.
So what I'll say to that is I believe there are some emergency management plans in place. I'm not overly familiar with them, but maybe I can offer a suggestion for another podcast. You may want to bring in the emergency management coordinator, Blaze.
I know Blaze. Maybe we'll get Blaze to ask about. That was one of the ideas I had.
So Blaze would be able to to talk about some of those things and answer some of those questions, because there are some plans in place. I'm not 100% sure what they are, but
But you know quite a bit, so thank you for coming.
I appreciate it. Yeah, and I have to say that the part that was most revealing to me, which I did not understand until today, was that there is a big difference between the town and the county's part of the active transport. I assumed it was all the same thing, administered by the same group of people, and it is fundamentally not. So I think what we're going to need to do is get a town person in here to talk about what the town is doing, because I have lots of questions for you about like what's going on with an Indian Street and like how are they going to connect to Columbus Field, and you don't know any of that. That is not your area.
Yeah,
So,
but I think the listeners would learn a lot from the one what we have just talked.
this is very informative.
Yeah, very informative, and to understand that you really have to think in the future to start investing now. And this is amazing.
Well said.
That is
Well
key.
said.
Yeah, that is absolutely key.
Thank you.
Well, thanks you for coming. This is great.
Okay.
And maybe we'll have you back as things expand.
I'd love to come back.
Sure. Awesome. This is the first episode of Let's Talk Antigonish. Don't hesitate to subscribe. Just go to letstalkantigonish.ca and click. Voila! You'll receive new episodes right in your email inbox.
We would like you to consider making a small or large contribution to get Antigonish talking. This podcast is a labor of love, and we know you like it, don't you? Please consider making a contribution, small or large, maybe a monthly subscription, or a thank you for doing this step. We are hoping to buy some recording equipment to make it possible to record our interviews with a more professional setup and pay for our audio editing software and web hosting and all that, and make it truly community-driven idea. Depending on the level of public support, we would like to engage local producers and journalists to create more regular deep dive news stories about life here in Antigonish and compensate them for their time and passion.
Right now, it's just Anuj and I doing this in our free time. You can read all about the podcast and ways to support us at letstalkantigonish.ca. And if you're a local business that wants to sponsor the podcast or even place an audio ad, we are certainly not opposed. And remember to get in touch with us if you have an idea for a future episode or a burning question about life in Antigonish that you want us to explore and get answers to. We welcome all feedback. Just email us at letstalkantigonish@gmail.com. Let's talk, Antigonish.